Good afternoon, everyone. Greetings from the Institute of Global Professional IGP Bangladesh. Thank you all for joining us and staying with us till the end. Honorable Nuri Sikar, today I am your host for the morning. Afternoon. My name is Yani Sakta Chaudhary and I am from Bangladesh. Dear Nuri Sikar, I am proud to be associated with IGP as a global member. IGP is a social and ISO certified international training institute. In 3 years, we already served 3 million knowledge seekers from 100 plus countries. IGP is internationally recognized and globally accredited. We are connected to more than 250 plus profession and 4,500 plus organizations. Institute of Global Professional is the training faculty for skill development which was founded in 2020 and is generating competent candidates to meet demand in the global labor market by providing professional qualifications. The Institute of Global Professional is an educational institute that provides social work globally recognized and reputable. We serve student and community resource providing holistic social work and education. We believe that it is not effective to increase one's skill just by acquiring formal education. So we provide effective training and consultation to generate professional generation all over the world. IGPC is one of the famous online institutes from all over the world. Our vision is education is not a business, it's a part of our human rights. Based on our vision, and we are trying to reach all corners of the world for free webinars, seminars, courses, awards, quiz competition, mentoring, and counseling aids. On the other side, we are also trying to serve more than 100 premium services for free, like with own portfolio website, resume builder, cover letter, motivation letter. We help to empower youth to learn to meet the expectation and dreams and become highly skilled people. We implement several trainings, programs, webinars, and offline online courses for youth and learners by professional trainers, speakers, and coaches. To ensure excellent and in-depth instruction, we arrange with qualified trainers, speakers, and instructors. We extend free services to more than 3 million seekers in the last 3 years. We have affiliations with universities and organizations in 70 different countries. Virtual moves signing with many colleges and organizations have been accomplished. We are working to create a legendary generation of future scholars and citizens who will be accountable. We are constantly prepared to assist all knowledge seekers with valuable service. Spreading knowledge is crucial for the Institute of Global Professionals. We believe that knowledge is love, light, and vision. We must have a genuine concern for the learners. We represent more diversity, growth, innovation are required. To lead a session with professionalism, passion, and integrity, IGP members are committed to offering effective base quality service and continual improvement so that individuals who seek information can improve their skill levels and value. Before you move to the next, let me remind you don't forget to share, tag, and mention your friends in the comment box. Your support is very valuable to us. Thank you. Moving to the next, with your continuous support, we already completed 1,354 webinars successfully. At present, now we are going to start our 1355 and our program name is Mental Disorder and Treatments Part 4. Today we have our speaker. Our speaker name is Hazara Saddam. She is from Sri Lanka. She is a clinical psychologist and senior counselor from Islamic Care Line Counseling Center, clinical psychologist, Durdans Hospital, psychologist and senior counselor from Al Musad Ada Foundation, lecturer from Colombo University and Metropolitan University and Amazon College. Uh, Now, time for very important moment for me to invite our speaker to IGP with her presentation. Now, very important moment for me to invite our speaker to IGP with her presentation. Hello, ma'am.
Hi,
Hi, good afternoon, ma'am.
good afternoon.
Uh, Ma'am, please give some description about yourself, then you can start.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hajira Siddham. I am from Sri Lanka. I'm a practicing clinical psychologist, lecturer, motivational speaker, and a trainer. I have been in this field for more than 13 years. I practice as a senior consultant in one of the leading hospitals in Sri Lanka. Also, I'm a lecturer for Sri Lankan Government University called Colombo University. I have done more than 3,000 training programs across the world, and I've dealt with more than 7,000 clients in my career. So, presently pursuing my PhD. So, that's a bit about myself. So, this is not my first program with IGP. So, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I'm so glad, and it's a honor and a privilege to meet you all today. Thank you so much. Can I start?
Yes, ma'am, you can start.
Okay. Thank you so much. Once again, a very, very, very good evening to all of you. Hope you all doing well. How are you all? How is your day today? I can see a lot of people across the world. Lily, Gemma, thank you so much for joining with me today. Monetti, and as usual, we have our Isaiah. Generally, I get to see him in all my sessions. Welcome, Isaiah. Then Nazir, hope you're doing well. You're from Bangladesh. Then, hi, Isaiah. Thank you so much for your greetings from Kenya. So it's nice to see you all in this pleasant afternoon. So I hope today's session is going to be a very, very interesting and fruitful session. So you guys will gain a lot of this session. So in the previous sessions, we have spoken about what is okay. In the previous session, we have spoken about mental health and what's abnormality. How can we differentiate between normality and abnormality? So today also I'm with a very interesting topic. So that's about anxiety disorders. So we're going to talk about anxiety disorders according to DSM-5. So before I move on to the topics, so I want to talk about something very interesting. So just start of talking about anxiety and then moving on to anxiety disorder. So I would like to ask you something, guys. What is your biggest fear in life? What is your biggest fear in life? We all have fears, right? Even I do have fears. So we all have fears. Just want to know what is your biggest fear in life? What are you really fearful about? Generally, when I ask my students, they tell me that they're fearful about their exams. Yeah, so that's one thing that we all are like fearful about. Sometimes when I ask little kids, they say that they're fearful about ghosts, evil, and they're fearful about animals, insects. Yeah. So when I ask adults, what are your biggest fears? So generally they say that we are fearful of humans because humans are very complicated to understand. We can't understand. So we all have fears. So what is your biggest fear? People have fears of failing. People have fears of situations, fears of people, um, certain things. So what is your biggest fear in life? Okay, that's very nice. Rejection and failure. Yes, that's correct. Even I have fears about that. Rejection and failure. Yes, we don't like to fail. We don't want to get rejected. So it's a pretty common. Yeah, that's correct. So we have fears. So just a quick question. I just want to ask you, what is the difference between anxiety and fear? Do you think anxiety and fear are the same? Or is it different? If it's different, what's the difference? Do you think is there any difference between fear and anxiety? What is the difference between fear and anxiety? Any idea? Oh yeah, people have fears about public speaking, changes. Yeah. What is the difference between fear and um, anxiety? Do you think there's any difference between fear and anxiety? Okay. Yeah, I think maybe you're a bit confused about fear and anxiety. Fear and anxiety both are different terms. Fear is basically a feeling. A feeling. Fear is a feeling or an emotion. It can be caused as an emotion or a feeling. There is a difference between fear and anxiety. So fear is an emotion or it's a feeling. Fear causes anxiety. That's correct, Isaiah. Wonderful. You said it correctly. Fear causes anxiety. Anxiety is the extreme level of fear, which leads to physiological arousals, which can be triggered by a stimuli. Which can be triggered by a stimuli. Generally, when you face a threatful situation, generally when you face a threat, you get fear. So threat, it comes from a stimuli. We get threats from a stimuli. So stimuli is basically something which evokes a response. Now even I can be a stimuli. Yeah. So now I'm evoking a response in you. I'm asking a question, so you're answering me. So I'm evoking a response. So stimuli is something which evokes a response. So you are evoking responses, and I am evoking responses. Everything around us evokes responses. So when you have when you have some stimuli which is threatful, or which you perceive it as a threat, which evokes our anxiety, which evokes our extreme level of fear. But the fear, let's say generally, without even a stimuli, I can have a fear. Now there's no stimuli. Yeah, there's no stimuli, but still I can have a fear. Anxiety, with or without a stimuli, you can have anxiety. But mostly anxiety is inclined with a stimuli. When there's a stimuli which is threatful, definitely it evokes your anxiety. Why do we have this anxiety? Can you tell me what is the purpose of anxiety? Why people have anxiety? In the early ages, yeah, cavemen. Cavemen in the early ages, they lived in a very threatful situation. Yeah, they lived in a very threatful situation. They lived in jungles, they lived inside the caves. So any time they could have faced some sort of a threat. They could have faced a danger. So every time they faced a danger, they evoke this reaction, stress reaction called anxiety. So it is known as the survival instinct. Anxiety, it evokes because that you want to survive. Survival instinct. If something is threatening my survival, if something is affecting my survival, then it evokes my anxiety. Because I get so anxious because of the fear that I will die. When I think that I will die, definitely it evokes my fear. It goes to an extreme level which leads to anxiety along with physiological responses. Now, generally, fear also arouses your physiological responses, but anxiety takes it to another level. Let me give you a few examples. Let's say, for example, you're walking across the jungle. You're walking across the jungle, and what happens? All of a sudden, you face a wolf. The moment you face a wolf, your heart starts pounding so fast. Your heart starts beating so fast, and your muscles become so tensed, and you become immensely alert. Yeah, your eyes get wide open, your intestines get closed because you should not lose energy, and you try to save energy inside, and your heart pump increases because you need a lot of oxygen. Yeah, so in split second, you are in an intensely fear and anxious because you face the threat. Then you can make a decision at that time whether you're going to fight with the wolf or whether you're going to run away from the wolf. So anxiety and fear evokes fight or flight responses. Either you fight with the situation or either you fly away from the situation. So you decide what you need to do at that moment. It's an involuntarily spontaneous reaction which occurred because of the perceived danger. So there is a danger, you're perceiving it, so it evoked the response. Yeah. So this is when you face anxiety and fear. So this fight or flight responses will lead to physical arousals which causes anxiety. So your reaction remains stable for some times. Let me give you another example. Let's say it's a weekend and you have gone to the grocery shop. You've gone to the grocery shop and you give your ATM card to see your card has been declined. You are confused, and the butcher says that your card is declined because it shows that there's no money. Now you're confused. In a moment, you get palpitations. You get your heartbeat beat fasting, and you get sometimes even shortness of breath because you need a lot of oxygen. You start sweating. Yeah, you start even shivering because you are anxious now. You don't know what's going on. So you just deposited your money last night, but there's no cash in your card and your card is kept on declining. So now you decide whether you are going to fight with the situation or whether you're going to fly away. So you are so embarrassed. You're so upset. You're so worried. You can't do anything. Now you decide, what am I really going to do? Whether I'm going to go away or whether I'm going to face the situation. So with a lot of embarrassment, you just walk out of the store, leaving all the goods there. So in the previous situation, you got threatened by a wolf. Obviously, you can't fight with the wolf. So you try to fly away. Or if you feel like, no, I can fight with the wolf, so you start fighting. So these are called fight or flight responses. So in the second situation, you decide to walk away because you can't solve the problem at that point. So you just move on. So you take a flight response. Yeah. In between fight and flight, we have freeze response. Sometimes I get clients when they have anxiety, when their anxiety hits to the peak, they go blackout, they faint, they lose their consciousness. Yeah. So what happens? All of a sudden, they faint when they get extremely fearful, or they go blackout. For a moment, they are like stunned. For a moment, they are stunned, or maybe they are like a stupor, like a statue. So this at this point, what happens to the person is they know that they can't fight or they know they can't fly away from the situation. So they go to the freeze mode. They go in between. So that is why most of the people become catatonic, like stupors, or maybe they go blackout, or maybe they pass out, or maybe they faint. It's all because they have freeze moments in their life. Yeah. So these are the responses for a threatful situation which evokes your anxiety. Yeah. Now your fight or flight responses produces an emotion at that time. The emotion is known as anxiety. Let's imagine that you have been chased by a dog. Yeah. So you have been chased by a dog one day, which evokes your fear and anxiety. You perceive the threat and it evokes your anxiety. What happens if you feel like every day you are being chased by a dog? How do you feel? If you are being chased by a dog almost every day, how would that feel? If it's one incident, it means that you are feeling anxious and fearful. If you are being chased by a dog every day and if you have that feeling, that is called anxiety disorder. Anxiety is a natural response to a threatful situation. When there's a perceived threat, as I told you, your bank card declining, or maybe you're meeting a wolf, there's a perceived threat. There's a perceived threat which leads to your anxious emotion. Let's say there's no threat, but still you perceive as if there's a threat. All of a sudden, a group of people coming inside the room and start eating me and start snatching all my jewel. So I know, oh my God, there's a threat. There's something happening to me. Yeah. So I get fearful and I get anxious. It's pretty normal. It's pretty common. But it's not happening. There's nothing happening as such. But I assume or I keep thinking, oh, will somebody come? Will somebody hit me? Will something happen to me? Will someone put me down or clash me, jump at me? I keep thinking. This is anxiety disorder. When you have a perceived threat, it's normal, but there's no threat, but you perceive as if there's a threat. Then it becomes anxiety disorder. Yeah. So when this flight or fight responses gets activated, generally you have anxiety, and it could lead to a hypersensitive fight or flight response. Now, at the first situation, you get it, you feel that. Then your fight or flight responses gets sensitive with certain people. So next time, whether it happens or not, still they perceive there's something dangerous. Yeah. So without any effort, your anxiety feeling gets provoked and it becomes a full-blown fight or flight and it leads to panic attacks. That's when people have panic attacks because their survival mode gets on. So you have survival mode when you feel the threat, it evokes your anxiety and your survival mode switch gets on. So you start panicking. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Am I going to die? Or what is going to happen actually? What's next? So this is the mechanism of anxiety, and this is the mechanism of anxiety disorders. Yeah. So for an example, if you get afraid of something, a crowd, or if you get afraid of a cat, it could be anything. And if you get anxiety at that point, probably every time you go there, you're going to get triggered. Or probably every time you meet a cat, you're going to get triggered. So I had a client who had a fear of cats. So before she coming, she told me that I have the fear of cats and I am sure there's no cats at home. So I made sure that my cat was being locked inside the room. So carefully, I took all the precautions to lock my cat inside the room because I'm going to take the client. But unfortunately, on that day, I don't know how it happened. I kept all the windows and doors shut, but the cat jumped out. So she saw it and she started screaming. Then I quickly calmed her down and I locked the cat inside. And then after a few minutes, I was able to relax her, calm her down, and ask her what happened. Then she told me, this is what happens to me. Every time I see a cat, I get triggered. So I start screaming. I try to run away. I try to escape from that situation. Yeah, but it sometimes leads to panic attacks. So with my cat, I was able to help her. I used systematic desensitization and exposure therapy slowly to get her rid of the fear of cats. And now she doesn't have the fear. So she's out of it. So you can understand this is how generally anxiety occurs. Yeah. So this is the mechanism of anxiety. So some people are vulnerable to anxiety because of some reason. So we'll be talking about the causes later. So according to DSM-5, guys, we're going to talk about what is the outline description of anxiety disorder. What is anxiety disorder? And what are the common risk factors of anxiety? And what is the etiology? Etiology is the causes and what's the treatment. This is what we're going to discuss. So anxiety versus fear, as I said, anxiety is basically a threat, a perception, a apprehension about a future threat. So when you have anxiety, you're always on guard. You think that there's something dangerous around you or there's something dangerous which is going to happen next. So people who have anxiety, they always have thoughts about future. They have thoughts about future, something danger is going to happen. It keeps popping up in their mind. So, but the fear, it's just the response, it's just your emotions, which just comes up when you perceive a threat. Fear is not about the future mostly, but anxiety is mostly about future. As I said at the beginning, fear and anxiety both has physiological responses. Even fear and anxiety both can trigger fight or flight responses. Yeah. So anxiety is a pretty common anxiety disorder is a pretty common disorder in my country, in Sri Lanka. It's very common. So even in Asian countries, I've heard that anxiety is pretty common. So under anxiety, we have 5 major disorders according to DSM-5. So before in DSM-4 it was 7, but now they have made it 5. So the first one is specific phobias. Second one is social anxiety. Then panic disorder, agoraphobia, and GAD. Anxiety is known as the common cold. Yeah, 28% of people population report anxiety symptoms because it's pretty common. And especially after Corona, I experienced an increase of anxiety patients because Corona produced a lot of fears. Corona evoked a lot of fears, and people started fearing about diseases. People started fearing about future. So uh, that made an increase in anxiety disorders. So it became very popular. Yeah. So in DSM-5, we could see that they have given a criteria for each disorder. Number one, the symptoms. Even I have discussed this in the previous class. The symptoms should interfere with our day-to-day functionings. Day-to-day functioning, it should interfere. And it should cause an impaired stress. It should cause an impaired stress, which leads to frustration. And definitely, the symptoms cannot be caused by abusing drugs or medical reactions. At least the symptoms should be persistent for 6 months, or at least 1 month for panic disorder, because panic disorder they have severe physical symptoms. So that's why it's for 1 month and the other for at least 6 months. So these anxiety fears, the fears and the anxieties should be distinguished, differentiated from the other symptoms of anxiety disorder. So let's talk about phobias. So I get to see a lot of clients who are having phobias. Agoraphobia, claustrophobia, flightophobia, aquaphobia. Yeah, so there are several types of phobia. So phobias is an irrational fear towards a particular object or a situation, a destructive fear. If you ask me what's the difference between fear and phobias, I would say phobias, anxiety, is an anxiety disorder. It's a destructive fear for a particular object or a situation. Let's say, for an example, you climb Mount Everest. You put a lot of effort and you climb Mount Everest. Then you climb onto the top. You climb onto the top. What happens after you climb onto the top? You slip and you fall. You roll down and you fall. Unfortunately, you meet with an accident and you have a fracture. Since then, the moment you hear the word Mount Everest, you're going to shiver. Because the experience has been very bad. The experience has been a negative experience in your life. So every time you face it again, or every time you have a similar situation, so maybe the next time you don't have to go to the same place, but even if you will have a fear of climbing to another mountain, or you may develop a fear of climbing to upper floors in your apartment. So this is a form of a phobia. So phobia generally occurs because of trauma, because of threatful situations which gave you an intense emotions. So this fear is out of proportion to avoid you avoid similar places. You have an excessive fear towards that particular object or particular place or particular situation. Yeah. So this causes distress. You keep thinking about it. It keeps interfering in your day-to-day life. It causes stress. Have you guys had a similar situation in your life? I had. I had a phobia. I studied abroad. Um when I flew, when I was going in the flight, what happened? All of a sudden, there was a huge jerk. That was, I think that was my first or second journey. There was a huge jerk. So I have heard about these flight crashes and all that. But it has not bothered me so much. But as usual, it was my first journey, so I had some fear. I'm talking about 10, 15 years back, almost 15 years back, I think. So that was my first journey. Then I had a fear. So it was a huge jerk. And I remember I happened to shout. I made a huge noise because I got so fearful. I started panicking. My heart beat was so fast. I couldn't breathe. I was feeling very, very, very anxious at that time. And then the flight started jerking like this. It was turbulence. It was severe, heavy turbulence because it was a rainy day, I guess. Heavy turbulence. I got so fearful. It increased my fear. It increased my fear more and more and more. Then, okay, I landed safely and everything was okay, good. Then I forgot about that. So I told you, right? I studied abroad. Now I'm coming back to Sri Lanka for vacation. Now, when I got into the flight, I got this again. But there's no threat. There's no threat. And it was not even turbulence. I got this once again. I started panicking. So then, throughout the journey, I couldn't rest. I was restless. I was agitated. I was feeling so agitated. Then somehow I calmed myself and I was able to manage. So now I came down. Now I had to go again. After the vacation, I had to go again. Now, before I go, I started feeling anxious. Now I'm getting ready to go. The whole night I couldn't sleep. The whole night I was restless. I was so much in fear. And I was thinking about it. I was not even worried about me leaving my family behind. So I was really worried about how am I going to manage? I'm going to go. What will happen? So now I'm fear. Now what happened? Again, when I was in the flight, I experienced the same. So this became a cycle in my life. So every time when I came down to Sri Lanka, I had a similar situation. Every time when I go back, I had a similar situation. So I developed flightophobia. So what happened? So I try to avoid. I tell my husband, no, let's not go to Sri Lanka this time. I don't want to go. So I was trying to avoid it as much as possible. Yeah. The moment I hear the word flight, it triggers my anxiety. The moment I see a picture of a flight, it triggers my anxiety. So there was a time I remember that I couldn't hear the word. Then after I started studying about phobias, I realized that I've developed a phobia. I realized that I've developed a phobia. So I started treating my own self. Once I became a psychologist, I used therapy for myself and I started treating my own self. And now I think for the past few years, I've not experienced it. I'm okay with it. I've overcome that. Yeah. So this is a phobia. This is a typical phobia. Yeah. So likewise, you have phobias where you try to avoid the stimuli. Whichever is evoking your anxiety, you try to avoid the stimuli. You try to be away from that particular stimuli. Yeah. So the symptoms, we have specific phobias. Yeah, you can see examples. Fear of flying, fear of snakes, fear of heights. Yeah. So fear out of proportion. And you know that the fear is excessive. It's excessive to the extent that evokes all your physiological response. Yes. So specific phobias is pretty common. So what is the marked criteria for specific phobia? Disappropriate fear constantly triggered by a specific object or a situation. Due to a situation or an object, your fear should get constantly be triggered. Yeah, but it's not appropriate or proportionate, so it gets triggered by that particular situation. And you avoid the situation and you try to avoid the situation as much as possible. And the symptoms should last at least for 6 months. This is the main criteria for specific phobias. What are the types of specific phobias? Yeah, so people have phobias for animals, snakes, reptiles. Yes, and then sometimes they have phobias for storms, heights, water. So I remember I had a client. She lost her family in tsunami. In 2004, she lost her family in tsunami. Since then, she can't even hear the word sea. She can't hear the word sea. She can't go to the beach. She can't even see a beach in a phone or a TV or a video. Her anxiety gets triggered. So she had a marked severe fear towards sea and beach. And I've seen clients who have a fear of blood, injections, injuries, and certain situations. Sometimes people have fear about public transportations. Yeah, and I had another client. She had a fear about public toilets. She can't use public toilets. When she goes out, she tries to hold herself back. She doesn't use um, public toilets. Then, out of the phobias, there's a specific phobia which was called a phobia before. It was called as a phobia before, but now it's called as anxiety disorder separately. Before it was social phobia, but now it is called as social anxiety disorder. So social anxiety disorder is also one of the very common disorders, anxiety disorders. I get lots of patients who have social anxiety disorder. So when they have social anxiety disorder, they have issues in facing people. Yeah. So they can't get exposed to social situations. Whenever they get exposed to a social situation, the anxiety gets triggered and they evaluate the situation negatively and they perceive it as a threat. A girl who came to me, when she came to me first, she couldn't even look at my face. She was looking down like this. She was holding her mother's hand so tightly, like this. And she was telling to her mom, Mama, let's go home. Mama, let's go home. I can't stay here. I can't stay here. So I slowly spoke to her. I had to speak to her. And I spoke to her very slowly and made her understand that she's suffering with social anxiety. So she had a very bad experience in the past. So since then, she can't go and face strangers. She can't talk to strangers. She can't. She can't get into any social situations. She can't go to functions. She can't go to market. She can't go and attend any social situations. So because it evokes an intense anxiety within her. So the moment she goes to a similar situation, it evokes her anxiety and it leads to intense fears. It leads to intense fear. So this social anxiety is somewhat similar to extreme shyness. Now, you must have seen people who have shyness. Is there anyone who has shyness here? Who is a shy person? Who's very shy? Like, I don't like to talk. I don't want to talk. I'm very shy to talk. So shyness is considered to be a personality character, right? Yeah, but there are people who have extreme shyness, like they're very shy. I had a client, she's shy to the extent that she can't hug or kiss her husband. So it's very funny. Yeah. Because when the husband came to me, but they have three kids, huh? Yeah, that's the most interesting thing. So they have three kids, uh, but the kids, it's because that the husband told me, like anytime when they're together, they switch off the lights. Only then she'll get along with this person. Other than that, they try to avoid. She tries to avoid. But they've lived for nearly 15 years, but she can't touch. She can't touch him. She can't hold him. She can't hug him. She can't even look at his eye to eye. She's extremely shy. From small days, she's been extremely shy, and now it has become a problem. Shyness is different from anxiety. Anxiety is persistent. It will be there for some times, and it's very intense. And you avoid the situation. These are the three important criteria which will help you to distinguish between shyness and anxiety. It's frequent, yeah, and you avoid the social situation, and it's very intense. And you evaluate social situation very negatively. You think that there's something terrible is going to happen if I get exposed to social situation. Generally, we see that it starts mostly with adolescence. Most of the clients I have dealt who has social anxiety are adolescents. Yeah. This generally overlaps with shyness, the other side, avoidant personality disorder. So, so that's about social anxiety disorder. So I hope it's clear. So let's move on to panic disorder. So that's the second type. Panic disorder is basically marked by having panic attacks. Yeah, so panic attacks are unrelated. Sometimes we get patients to the hospital saying that, oh, doctor, I'm having a heart attack. Oh, doctor, I'm paralyzed. Oh, doctor, I'm having severe asthma. It's because they have panic disorder. Panic disorder is sudden episodes of tremors, feeling like you're losing control. It's an intense necessity to fly away. It's an intense necessity to flee. But the symptoms will not long last for a long period. It will be there only for a very short period. Maybe for about like 10-15 minutes maximum. It includes a lot of physical symptoms. When we have panic disorder has physical symptoms. Breathing difficulties, palpitations, nausea, chest pain, choking, feeling like there's something stuck here, dizziness, excessive sweat, lightheadedness, chill, and hot and cold flushes, trembling, agitated, and restless. These are the symptoms. And sometimes they could also have symptoms like depersonalization and derealizations. Depersonalization is basically you feel like you're out of your body. Out of your body, you're not connected with the body. For an example, let's imagine that you're watching a movie. You're seated and you're watching a movie in the screen on the screen. So the movie screen, it's out, right? It's not inside you, it's outside. So you see it outside, it's far, it's a bit far. People who have depersonalization and derealization, they'll feel that they are out of the body. It's an out of body experience. And then they'll feel like they're not connected to the reality, they're not connected to the world, derealization. They're not connected to the world. There's somebody who's like out of the world. I have I've got clients who says like I feel like there's nothing realistic around me. I feel like everything is fake. I feel like I'm in a cartoon. I feel like I'm in a movie. It's very difficult to explain, guys. because the feeling of depersonalization and derealization is pretty hard to explain. You feel like you are out of the body. You feel like you are out of the soul. You're out of the place. So you're not connected with the reality. And sometimes you feel like you are going crazy. You're losing control. And clients come and tell me, I feel like I'm going to die. I feel like somebody in my family is going to die. I feel like there's something terrible is going to happen to me. I feel like there's something weird happening around me. And I can't figure it out. What is it? Yeah. So mostly people who has anxiety, 25% of people who has anxiety experience panic disorder. Yeah. So some panic disorders comes with a trigger. Sometimes it comes without trigger. But mostly it comes with a trigger, but it's unexpected. We never expect it. Yeah. So you have to notice the attacks and the episodes, the patterns of the episodes, and you try to analyze the patterns of the episodes and how it occurs. That's how you come to general conclusions. And it causes a lot of worries about future attacks. It causes a lot of worries about future attacks. Yeah. And we have uncued panic attack and we have cued panic attack. So cued panic attack comes with a trigger. So you know that there's a specific trigger. Now let's say the moment you see a snake, you get panic attack. Or the moment you fly, you get a panic attack. Or the moment you see a cat, you get a panic attack. Or the moment you go out to a public situation, you get a panic attack. Uncued panic attack is basically there's no trigger, but it's unexpected, as I said before. Those are the two varieties of panic disorders. So according to DSM-5, panic disorder, you should have recurrent unexpected episodes, at least for 1 month. And you should keep worrying about it, and you keep thinking about the consequences of the attack. And it causes maladaptive behavior and maladaptive thought processes. Yes, the next type is agoraphobia. Agro is known as the marketplace in Greek. Agro is known as the marketplace in Greek. There are certain situations where you feel trapped and you feel like I can't fly away from this. Let's say, for an example, an earthquake. Okay. So you feel like I can't get out of this situation. I can't fly. So then it evokes your anxiety. That is agoraphobia. Agoraphobia, the specific situation evokes your anxiety. Maybe crowds, church, train, bridge, tunnel. You feel like I can't escape from this place. I can't escape from this place. So when you think that I can't escape, there's no escape out of this place, it triggers your anxiety, and that's known as agoraphobia mostly. So 50% of people who have agoraphobia, they suffer with panic attacks and panic disorder. Yeah, and this causes a significant impairment, guys. It's because that they are unable to face the situation, and they're unable to go into that situation. They become very, very panicking with certain situations. That's when they face these issues. So if you look at the DSM-5 agoraphobia, it says disproportionate and marked fear of anxiety, at least for 2 situations, where the person thinks that I can't escape from this situation and I need some sort of a help. And you get panicking symptoms in that situations. At least in 2 situations where you think that I can't escape and you get panic symptoms, panic attacks in those situations. Maybe in public places, public transport, market, as I said, any situation before. And those situations should continuously and consistently provoke the fear and anxiety. So these situations the client tries to avoid, they try to avoid, or maybe they need a companion to feel secured. And symptoms should last for at least 6 months. Then we have GAD, that's generalized anxiety disorder. Worry. A client who came to me, she worries for everything. She worries for eating, she worries for sleeping, she worries when her husband goes out, she worries if her kids fall sick. Constantly she's in a worry. Uncontrollable worry. How much ever she tries to control her worry, she's unable to control her worry because constantly she's worrying about something. And this worry is been there for more than 6 months and it keeps coming back. It keeps coming back. Every time it gets triggered, it interferes their day-to-day life, day-to-day life. And they're very restless, they can't concentrate, and they get tired, and they have muscle tensions. They have worries about health, relationships, finance, daily living, kids, everything. So they almost fear for almost everything. So this is GAD. So if you look at the criteria for GAD, it's basically they are restless, easily fatigued, and irritable. They have muscle tensions and disturbance. So their worry is sustained for at least 3 months. If you know anyone who has been going through generalized anxiety, please mention their names in the chat box because GAD is very, very common among our population. So what is the prevalence of GAD in your country? Just mention in the chat box. What is the prevalence of GAD? Can you mention in the chat box what is the prevalence of GAD? What is the prevalence of GAD? Hello, can you all hear me? Sorry, I had a connection drop. Very sorry, I had a connection drop. Yeah, so finances and work. What does that mean? Monet. Yeah, so people like generally we all worry. We are constantly worrying about something. But people who have generalized anxiety, like they have this irritability. They're irritated with their worries and they can't concentrate and they have sleep disturbance and they have muscle tensions and they find very difficult to cope with their day-to-day life and day-to-day worries. So they become extremely tired, like they're like almost sick most of the time. They can't do work and they have overthinking. They're loaded with a lot of thoughts. Yeah, so it provokes their anxiety as much as possible, and which leads to a lot of other complications as well. So at least they should have worry for a period of 3 months for us to diagnose them as GAD. So they have worries about almost everything. But you have to check whether they have worries about at least two domains in life: family, health, finances, work, and school. Yeah. So mostly we see finances, health, family. These are the common ones. Yes. So this worry is associated with a lot of avoidance. They try to avoid a lot of situations and they try to avoid a lot of negative outcomes. So they procrastinate, they don't take decisions, fearing that these things will lead to some problem. Yes. So, so that's about the types of anxiety. So that's about for today. So to put everything in a nutshell, I told you what is what is anxiety, what is the difference between fear and anxiety, and also we have been talking about fight or flight responses. Why does it happen, and how does it evoke anxiety, and what are the consequences of it? Then also we have spoken about the different types of anxiety disorders according to DSM-5, and it's five. And we spoke about phobia, and then we spoke about spoke about phobia, and then we spoke about panic disorder, and we spoke about social anxiety, agoraphobia, and then finally we spoke about GAD. So I'm done for today. If you have any questions, you can ask me. So anxiety disorders, it's very important to understand anxiety disorders because you may have your friends who are facing anxiety disorders or having anxiety disorders, and you may have people around you who has been going through anxiety disorders. And even if you're a counselor, psychologist, or a psychiatrist, you need to have a good understanding about anxiety disorder because most of the people nowadays we see that they suffer with anxiety disorder because they have a lot of fears. So it's pretty common.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your rich content presentation, uh, which can impact our knowledge seeker surely. After your presentation, I hope our knowledge seeker can learn something new, which is our own intuition. Learn and grow together, IGP knowledge seekers. Once again, thank you so much, ma'am, for your presentation. Now, ma'am, it's time our question answer session, which is the one more valuable part of our regular webinars. Honorable ma'am, please stay with us. After a short video, we'll be back in our session part 2, which is our question answer part. Okay, ma'am?
Thank you.
Uh, Dear IGP knowledge seek, it's time for our question answer session. Dear IGP knowledge seekers, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have a webinar certification on online quiz competition. After short video, we'll be back. So please stay with us and enjoy our question answer session. Once again, welcome back everyone. It's time for our question answer session. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, please ask your question in the comment box as much as you want to know from our speaker. Thank you. After question answer, we have our online quiz competition. Let's welcome back our speaker. Once again, welcome back, ma'am. Hello, ma'am.
Hi. Seems like no
Dear
questions.
IGP knowledge seeker, we are waiting for your question. If you have any question, you can ask. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, we are still waiting for your question. If you have any question, you can ask our speaker. We'll answer those questions. I think there is no question. I think you covered
Yeah.
all the topic in your presentation. So once again,
Thank
thank you
you.
so much, ma'am, for your time in IGP. We have learned a lot from you with your topics. It will add some value to our daily activity along with your academic and professional growth. Honorable ma'am,
Thank
hope to
you.
see you again with a new topic and a new date. Thank you, ma'am. Take care.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye bye. Take care.
Ma'am, if you want to leave this studio, you can, ma'am. Dear, dear IGP knowledge seeker, today are some technical problem. We cannot share our certificate code. We provide our certificate code in a short time. Thank you. Dear IGP knowledge seeker, today are some technical problem. We cannot share our certificate code. We provide our certificate code in a short time. Thank you. Dear IGP knowledge, it's time for the most engaging part of this webinar, which is our online quiz competition, which is our regular webinar activity. Now, time for the online quiz competition. To join the online quiz competition, please follow my instruction carefully. First, you have to go www.slido.com and find today's quiz or scan this QR code for direct join. Quiz code is global IGP. Quiz code is global IGP. After a short video, we will start our quiz session. So please everyone join our quiz session and don't forget to mention your friends to join our quiz session. Dear IGP knowledge seekers, now it's time for our quiz session. If you want to join our quiz session, please follow my instruction carefully. First, you have to go www.slido.com. Then you have to enter the code, and the code is global IGP, and the code is global IGP. It is easy to join the quiz, but so mention your friends to join the quiz competition. We'll pick your name from Slido, so join with your full name, which will directly printed on your certificate. And top 10 will be awarded with quiz competition certificate. Already 26 people joined with us. We are still waiting for your journey, so please join in our quiz session as soon as possible. And don't forget to mention your friends to join our quiz session. To join our quiz session, please follow an instruction carefully. First, you have to go www.slido.com. Then you have to enter the code, and the code is global IGP. And the code is global IGP. Now we'll start our quiz session. So be ready everyone. Let's start. First question. Treatments for mental disorder is it option therapy, second option is control. And the correct answer is therapy. 96% correct. The next question. Treatments for mental disorder is it option panicking, second option medication and or therapy. And the correct answer is medication and or therapy. And 100% people are right. Next question. Treatments for mental disorders work. Second option just as good as the treatment for physical disorders. Second option is poorly compared to the treatment for physical disorders. And the correct answer is option 1. 93% people are right. Next question. Meaning of mental disorders and treatment is it option SMD6, second option DSM5. And the correct answer is option 2 DSM5 and 33% people are right. Next question. Study of mental disorders and treatments is it option 1 abnormal psychology, second option psychoanalysis. And the correct answer is abnormal psychology and 26% people are right. The next slide. Treatments for mental disorders are effective option 1 less than the treatments for physical disorders. Second option is equally as much as the treatments for physical disorders. And the correct answer is option 2. Equally as much as the treatments for psychology, physical disorders. Then next question is common treatments for mental health disorders include is it option 1 therapy, coping strategies, second option and medication, isolating people so they can don't stigmatize others. And the correct answer is option 1. The next question. Treatments for mental disorder are not as effective as treatments for physical disorders. Is it option 1, 2, and option 2 is false. And the correct answer is false, and 96% people are right. Next. Are there treatments for mental health disorder? Is it false or true? And the correct answer, we can see that true and 100% you are right. The next question and the final question is the two most common treatments for mental disorders are medication and hospitalization. Is it true or false? And the correct answer is false and 44% from the right. Congratulations, Charlie Ivana sir. These are top one. Second position have Kiafa Rivera. In third position we have Raimonia K. Salzer. In fourth position we have Christopher Abinis. In fifth position Hiro Cortez. Congratulations, our top 10 IGP webinar quiz commissioner. We have all of your name. We'll pick your name from Slido and prepare certificate and post them on our Facebook official page. Our Facebook official page and group name is Institution of Global Professional. At the end of the moment of our session, we can say PDUs will never stop learning because life never stop teaching us. Be happy and stay safe. We want your participation in our every program. If you want to live a happy life tied to goal, not to people or things, Albert Einstein. Before I hit and add the like button, once again, thanks to all IGP Knowledge Seeker for your active participation as always. See you in the next session. Till then, stay happy and peace. Thank you, everyone.